Welcome to Football or Soccer, the podcast with me, Sam Palmer.
Chris Dyson.
Tony Tafe.
How are we, boys?
Are Liverpool still top of the league?
Do you know what? And that's today we're changing it up. We're changing it up.
We're not talking about it.
We're not talking about it because I think it doesn't really matter, I don't think. It was a wobble. It's the second game we've lost all year. Like in the Premier League. Arsenal slip up against Everton. Yeah. It kind of was the perfect weekend to do it.
If we lose against you boys on Sunday, we can talk about it then.
And I'll tell you now, you won't be losing against us on Sunday. I don't even want to talk
point
about
though,
this
Chris. It is a good point.
Yeah, look, I think there is, but I'm changing it up a bit this week because we've done a bit of goading on social media this week. While the game was going on and after Virgil made a mistake, I like to point it out that he'd made more mistakes than anyone else when and the Liverpool fans regard him as the top 10. So later in this episode, we are going to go through the top 10 all-time Premier League centre-halves. But I want to start with, did you see Gary Neville's comments on Sky Sports yesterday?
Yeah. I can't disagree with them.
I thought it was, look, obviously that game was absolutely dreadful. I'm going to say I think the Premier League in general, the weekend, there wasn't really a highlight I could even pick out. That's why I'm going to find it even harder to speak about the Premier League this week. And I thought he touched on it and he didn't go harder on it. Kind of what he did say was, since the arrival of Pep, everyone's now playing in a cheap imitation, was his exact words, of what City do. And I do agree, like you said, with Onana putting his foot on the ball. And I've got to say, I don't think it's just that's killing football, but I think there is quite a lot of things now.
Go on then, Sam. Give us your uncontroversial take.
I think VAR has been a huge downfall of the game, to be honest with you. Yeah, I really do. And I just think it's...
Tell me why.
I think the commercialisation of football now...
Tell me why, though. Go on. Because I think VAR is... I don't mind the stops in the game to get the right decision.
See, I do, and I think that's one of the things is the game stops too much. Mm-hmm. It was brought into for clear and obvious decisions. It's now refereeing games. Are these clear and obvious? I think what's not clear and obvious is what is a foul anymore. What's not a foul. I don't actually think it's the referee's faults. I think it's the ruling's faults.
The guy that went into McAllister, should that have been a red?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think so.
James Tarkowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, it was 100%. Look, would it have been a red in yesteryear? No. Because he did get the ball first. He definitely gets the ball. He goes through him.
But, he knew what he was doing there.
I agree.
I completely agree. I'm not in any doubt that. And that is where you look. That was where VAR was brought in for a clear and obvious mistake. Now, it didn't. And you're just like, for me, I would much rather see that mistake happen and not have to sit 6 minutes looking at it to get that decision.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. If they're not going to get it right, then what's the point?
What's the point?
Big thing. I agree with the premise. Like, let's get the right decisions made. But if you're not going to get the right decisions made, then it kind of falls on its face.
The argument for it is, and I don't like it by the way, but the argument for it is that they're getting more decisions right. But I don't know whether there's value added in it for the amount of decisions they're getting right versus
surely there's so much at stake, you know, with all football, but certainly in the Premier League. And these decisions, when they're wrong, can cost millions and tens and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars of what's on the line. And I think that, you know, it owes it when there's so much jeopardy and so much at stake. You've got to do everything in your power to make sure that the decisions are correct. I think.
Especially for me, what I've learned
in front of your face, you know, like that was so obvious. That Tarkowski one was. It was so obvious.
And we've seen, look, the Lewis Skelly one where he got sent off on the edge of the opposing box when he done a trip. Look, it was a professional foul.
I think for me, I mean, look, I think, that agreed. I think things like, did the ball cross the line? Was he offside? You know, those things those marginal decisions where the linesman doesn't always get it right, and they're the decisions that I think that people want to make sure that are righted. But yeah, refereeing I agree with you. Refereeing the game.
It was always never going to be to re-referee the game.
That's right.
And I think we've got to a place, for me, it doesn't work. I think what I've learnt about football, there is a lot of grey area in football.
Yeah.
That's interpretation of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you can.
And it looks worse.
And it slow it down, looks worse.
Yeah.
And I think what it's done with the product, because now the game has to adapt to that slowing down. Like the cup final, Newcastle, Liverpool.
Yeah.
When Chiesa scores, they slowed that 6 minutes, 8 minutes, or whatever it was to look at if Chiesa was offside. He wasn't. It was so obvious that he was onside. Then they went and looked back on the 20 other things. That's re-refereeing a game.
Yeah, they were looking at things that had happened.
Yeah.
3 minutes before.
But that there did not benefit Liverpool in any way, shape, or form, because it took all the energy out of the ground, all the energy out of the fans, everything, the momentum that Liverpool were going with. Whereas if it was a quick decision, it was back on, Newcastle were under the pump. And I think that then allowed Newcastle to reset, right? Let's get ourselves. And for me, I'm actually really, really, really worried about football. I really am, because I've said it all season. I find it so boring now. And I think tactics come into play of that. I think commercialization with players, where, I mean, they're not outspoken. They're not doing things because the sponsor's watching. Don't say that. Don't do this. The chants from fans that have all been toned down, and some rightly so. But the price of tickets, so now you're getting the foreign investor fan coming in, not the real fan. I think it's all added to the Premier League, and I've said it many times. I think the Premier League has eaten itself, and I don't think it'll come back.
And by the way, they've got a regulator coming in as well. This is only the start of it. It's not.
This is the start.
The regulator's not going to help it.
No. So I think I'm sad, actually. I'm really sad, because I think individuality has been taken out of the sport quite a lot. I see it in kids' games, not dribbling and running around and doing something off the cuff. It's more robotic, which Gary Neville was saying. It's robotic. Everyone needs a tactic now. Oh, they can't go to what Amarin's saying because they can't get the tactics. Well, that's what Neville, Keane, Carragher, all of them saying, like, well, we didn't need to know every bit of information. It was like, we kind of understand ourselves. But I don't think young players can understand themselves without manager telling them exactly.
There's been a
what to
couple
do.
of managers, haven't there, who've said, or their players have said in interviews, if the manager, and I wish I could remember who it was, but I think it was lower Premier League managers who said, if you kick the ball long, I'll sub you off.
Yeah.
Don't even think about doing it. There's no talent involved in that.
And also, look at what's coming up now as well, like Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester. Absolute added nothing to the Premier League.
Nothing.
Dross. Like absolute dross. I feel sorry for their fans. And what's funny is I've actually started watching the Championship.
Who's you like?
To get that
It's going to be a more
excitement.
exciting league this year.
To be honest with you,
unless
like,
you're a
even
Liverpool
down to
fan, of
Millwall,
course.
we're in about, sorry Millwall, but 10th, I think. They've still got a shot at getting the playoffs. And I'm looking at it going, Leeds were rampant. Now they're in third. And they will run away with it. Now
Let me ask
Burnley's
you this
top.
on that point. What do you think about the idea of the playoffs? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
Do you know what is funny? Because you say, like, because it's quite Americanized playoffs. But in the Championship, it really works.
But if you finish third, you'd be pissed, wouldn't you? Like you just worked.
Look, West
all
Ham
season.
came up and we qualified when we came up to the Premiership. We finished 6th on the last day of the season by a point. I think we beat Wigan or something. Or Wigan
Was
lost.
that with Allardyce?
No, not that season with Alan Pardew.
Oh,
But we come up in the playoffs again then as well.
Yeah.
I've got to say, it is exciting because
It's
you know what it is.
Excitement. I agree with you.
Well, the difference is why it works in that league. There's so much riding on it to get to the Premier League.
Of course.
Where if you've done it in the Premier
That's
League,
my point. But
is it as fun?
No, but that's my point. Well, I suppose they have it a little bit in the Premier League to get to the Champions League, don't they, with the top 4. But my point is, if you finish third in the Championship and you've gone all season and you're the third best team,
And the six
then-
can come
and
up.
The six guy.
Yeah,
can
but
come up.
those are the rules.
And I know
you
what
know,
they do.
you
That's-
know,
but
you
that's
finish, make sure you
jeopardy.
finish
I
second.
get it, and I know why they do it. It's more money, it's more eyeballs, it's more revenue, and it's more excitement, and it's a spectacle, which I get. But I do feel sorry for the third team.
Oh, without a doubt. But that's
If
the
you were to
jeopardy.
finish third in the championship by like 12 points, and you'd feel aggrieved, but it never happens like that in the championship, does it? It's always a lot closer
Yeah.
between like third and sixth. Is it's the top six, right?
Yeah, it's the third to sixth.
Right,
the
so
way,
it's
talking about
four
this-
teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen this? There's a thing on social media going around about the MLS and how have you seen that?
What where he's explaining it to him?
To
He's himself, isn't it?
Yeah, I
But,
mean,
and do you know what? When you see that video,
it's crazy, isn't it?
the MLS will never ever work because of that.
Yeah.
When do you know what? After I watched it, I thought,
What's the
'cause
video,
we've sort
boys?
of-
I haven't seen
Basically,
it. I'm sure a lot
there's
of
a
people
guy on
haven't.
social media and he's explaining the MLS. It's like it's a man watching the MLS. So explain the MLS to me. So you've got two leagues, but some
East and
teams
West.
play Eastern and Western Conference, but some teams play each other, but others don't. So it's completely unfair. Then you've got
Right.
this: you win the league, but there's no relegation.
That's right.
Then the owners will be happy. Well, no, actually, the league owns all the teams,
That's
so they're only the league's happy. Then it's then
Yeah.
a playoff down to ninth of each team, so you've got 18 teams,
Yeah.
and they're the actual champions. So you can finish ninth in the league, but actually be the actual overall champions. It's just like,
You could have a proper look at it, couldn't you? You really could.
It's
I
just
mean,
like
in terms
absolute
of
rubbish.
let's have another look at this and
Yeah.
let's
Is
that's
that not
'cause it's
similar
money.
to how the NFL works, though?
yeah.
It is,
Yes.
right?
Well, isn't the other? Isn't there a rival league and they're talking about having relegation? And,
Yeah,
and,
I think it's
promotion?
USL, is it?
Yeah, I think yeah.
I think it's called USL, and they're essentially a rival, but they don't have any money. So I don't know how much of a rival
Yeah,
they actually
exactly.
will be.
Well, maybe the relegation will help.
no, but I did think Neville's comments were
Sorry, back to that.
stark,
Yes, I like Gary. Neville.
fair, because he even apologised for his commentary, didn't he? He said, "I'm really
Yeah.
sorry."
He
for
said I
leaving
was
my comment."
bored, basically.
Yeah.
He said,
bored.
he said, I was bored.
Yeah.
And it was so boring. Like you look and you think it's sad for football, how it's become. But one bright spark, I will say,
Yeah,
one team I think does deserve a bit of props at the minute.
Liverpool.
Not Liverpool, Villa. I look at what they did in the January transfer window, bringing in Marlon, Asensio, and Rashford.
Yeah.
This might be up there with some of the best business we've ever seen. And I am, hold my hands up, I would not have touched Marcus Rashford
Yeah, I know.
No.
with a barge
Our
pole.
generational
No.
talent.
I would not. But, and look, I think the one that's gone under the radar a bit is Asensio.
But he's on a
8
loan
goals.
as well, isn't he?
He's on
Asensio's
loan, and I
on a loan
kind
too.
of don't understand why he's on loan because he's won Champions Leagues scored in the Champions League final, I think, in 2017 for Real Madrid. Won like 3 or 4 Champions Leagues, I think. Then he went to PSG as a free agent. Then, obviously, I don't know what's happened there, why it hasn't worked out. Gone on loan to Villa. He scored 8 goals in 11 games.
Yeah.
Like, that is a hell of a signing.
But mate, do you
Rashford's
know
got
what?
a couple or 3. Marlon's got 2.
Trying to get yourself a contract is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
You know,
you
like
go.
he's probably in trouble in his career right now, and he's like, I need to put a rocket up my arse. And
Well,
I would
you
say
wouldn't think so
similar
because
to
he's
Rashford.
he'll have a long contract to PSG. And I would think
I
he's
know,
on big
but I
money.
mean, trying to get yourself a contract somewhere where you're actually going to play, because if they've loaned him out and he's a seasoned player, which he is, they obviously don't fancy him for whatever reason. So
I
he needs
believe
to
all
be at a
3,
proper
and I
place.
might be wrong because I don't really know about Marlon, but I believe all 3 are on loan.
I'm not
So
sure about Marlon either.
Marlon's
Yeah.
from Borussia Dortmund. I've got a feeling he might be on loan as well. But you look at it, and I don't think Marlon is registered for the Champions League for some reason. But they've also, to add in, they've got Ramsey, Watkins, and arguably one of the players of the season, Morgan Rogers, who I think's in double figures for goals as well this year. What a forward line that is. Like at a minute, like I've got to say, they're doing well, Villa. They look. And
Emery's great, isn't he?
I was actually thinking the other
Quality
day,
manager.
have they got a chance of this Champions League? But I
Mate,
think that
they've got a
they-
great manager.
and
Great manager.
I think their defence will probably let them down a little bit in this. But like when I look at their midfield, Tielemans, Onana, They've got some really,
So who do you
really
think,
good players.
Who do you think? Where do you think it ends? Who do you think the top 4 is, or the 3-4?
Well, Liverpool, Arsenal, without a doubt. So we got 2 more. I think Forest will get it.
Yeah.
And then it's between Chelsea, City, Newcastle, Villa for that last spot.
Wait, who did you say were third, Sam?
Forest.
Okay.
And I think they'll cling on.
I would disagree with that, but I hope I'm
What
wrong.
you think?
But
What you think? Forest will fall out?
I think they will. I don't know why, because they don't seem
They
to
were
be.
unlucky this weekend. They played Villa.
Yeah.
They lost 2-1, but they were 2-0 down, and they came back. And I'll tell you what, they were absolute rampant. Villa were on the ropes so much for the first half of that second half.
Wow.
And I looked and I thought, these are good. Like I actually do fancy. I think Villa were just better. Villa have won 7 on the bounce.
Have they?
Yeah. Club record. 6 was the club record. 5 was the club record. I think.
Generational talent, mate. Marcus Rashford.
And you can't argue that he has done something. But then the answer is, will he go back to United? Will he go to Villa? Has his price gone up? Did they have him locked in at, because they were talking 40 million for him? Is that going to go up?
Is he on loan to Villa?
He's on loan, yeah.
Wow.
And look, I don't think he's pulling up trees, but I think he's an amazing addition to that front line and being able to give other players rest, because he started on the bench as well at the weekend, so he does come on and off the bench. But they've got a very good attacking talent, and Unai Emery, I've got to say, they're in the hunt for automatic qualification Champions League.
Yeah.
They're in the Champions League quarterfinals now, isn't it? Against PSG. And then I think they'd play Real Madrid or Arsenal in the next round. So you'd arguably say if they win them 2, they'd probably go on and win the Champions League. But they're 2 very tough teams to play.
Anything can happen though.
Yeah, and then
Those
they're in the
games,
semi-finals of FA Cup as well. It's great to see
Quality.
Villa.
Yeah,
Said
it
last
is.
Week, he's in a shout. If he does those things, it's not clear cut about manager of the season, and that's a fair point.
I think that is
That's
really
true.
fair
Yeah,
If you won,
that's actually a fair shout.
If you won
that,
the Champions League and the FA Cup, or got to the finals of both and qualified Champions League, But I think the business they've done there,
Yeah.
because you've got to remember when Steven Gerrard was manager of Villa, like when Unai Emery took over, they were in the bottom 3 or just outside the bottom 3. Yeah. So he has really transformed that club.
That's right.
And they feel almost
they were
like a
15th,
giant
I
of the
think.
league again, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. I was surprised Steve didn't do a better, or didn't have more success there. I wasn't going to say a better job. I thought he'd...
Well, he had a
Maybe
good
it was
start,
just at the
didn't he?
wrong time of Villa, and I think timing is a bit of it, because Villa have got money as well, which people actually forget. They've got like they spend money but bringing them transfers in, 3 of them on frees basically, or loans. What a bit of business that was, and you've got to look at then why hasn't Arsenal done that business to maybe get them over the line?
Because they fired Emery too early. They fired Emery too early, Arsenal.
Maybe. And look, and as I say, like taking over the club at the wrong time. Remember when Emery was there, they had Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ozil, they had all them big earners that weren't pulling the weight. And then Arteta actually got rid of them as well. So was the money there for him? I don't know. But it just maybe wrong time, taking over from Wenger. Was it the wrong period to take over? Would he do a better job now? Like it's a bit up in the air.
Just quickly though, going back to Rashford, right? I don't think Villa will want to sign him. I don't, because he's not starting for them. If they sign him, they're going to have to pretty much match his wages, which are ridiculous for a player.
Maybe
who's
not
just
though.
not
For
that
40
good.
million though, you'd say that. Like the way he's playing now, for 40 million.
But he doesn't start though.
No, he does. He does, just not every week. And I think they've probably, I would think one of the reasons he didn't start was because of Champions League.
Right, but
Coming
don't
up
forget,
as well.
right, you've got a 40 million layout to sign him. Then he's on 350 grand a week.
Yeah, but let's say he takes it. But Man United might have to cover some of that.
They might have to. They probably will, because I can't see any team signing him. I also
Well,
don't
the only
think
way
Marcus-
is, I would say, if Amorim gets the boot, which I don't think they're going to do.
No,
but,
I don't think they will either. No.
But would you be backing Amorim right now? Because as Neville said, they need 5 players. I think it's probably more. But he's saying they need 2 new wing backs. They just bought the wing back in January.
He said you needed 5 players, then he named about 7 positions
Like
in that bit.
Would you be backing Amorim to spend money at Man United, knowing that this could be close to last rolls of the dice?
I don't see
money?
that they have any other choice. What are they going to do? Fire the fella?
I would.
And then what?
Well,
And then what?
Jim Rashford was talking about them being on the brink of bankruptcy.
Well, that's what I mean. So if you give him a lot of money now, you're rolling the dice on. This might be your last big roll of the dice, right? With player transfers, and it is clear to see everyone they need transfers at Man United. Would you back him to go and spend 150?
I don't know.
They actually need to probably spend 400 million, which they're not going to get.
Which they don't have because of PSR.
What choice have they got? Like,
well, the choice is you could boot him.
But you got to pay him.
I know.
Like if you boot
but that's
him,
only like not one player.
But then you boot him and do what?
Like
you can't just say boot him because obviously there's no better options out there.
Bearing in mind,
Amorim
he's going to
wouldn't be
buy
there.
it, and this is where I put it in. He's going to buy for a system that no one else plays. So you are going to buy players that if you do sack him, you've now got a system of wing backs, which not many other managers play. So that's where you're going, right, are we going to be, like they are, they're lopsided now because they haven't got any wing backs. So
well, they have Luke Shaw, who
never plays, but
hasn't played. He was on the bench, wasn't he, at the weekend? If he somehow comes good and can stay fit, that's one less wing back.
He hasn't his whole career. That's him. So I would be saying you've got. If it was me, I'd be trying to get rid of a Luke Shaw because he just not reliable. Not that he's not a good player, but his whole 10 years at Manchester United.
Has he been there that long?
I bet he's been there 10 years. Luke Shaw, which is incredible that he's managed to be at the club that long.
But he came from Southampton, didn't he?
Yeah.
Jose signed him, no?
When he joined Manchester United. He joined Manchester United in 2014.
Wow.
He's actually in his 11th year.
That's bananas.
So, and how many games has he played in that time? Let's have a look. And that's where you look and go, can you really look at it? So Luke Shaw for Manchester United per season, 20 games, 8 games, 19. Bearing in mind, Man United usually play like 60 games a year, 55. 40, 33, 47, 27, 47, 15, 3. And you just kind of, you're looking, he's 29 now. He'll be 30 in July. Is he going to make a resurgence at 30 years of age? I don't think he is. So that's a worry with Amorim. Like Man United is a big worry because they look worse and worse each week to me. They've got nothing.
I mean, City looked as bad as them yesterday.
They did, and especially they're going for Champions League. City need a bit of a rebuild, I've got to say. They do.
And they just spent 180 in January, was it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And they don't look top players. Like, from what you're seeing. Mamouche looks like he'll be good, but I'm not seeing anything that going, whoa, he looks hell of a player.
I'm sure Pep will have plans and execute them in the summer.
Yeah.
I think, again, you got to make the most of these seasons where they don't do it.
Maybe there's not the players out there, though, as well, because I've got to say, the players coming through, harping back to yesteryear and sound like an old dinosaur, but they don't. I was saying this with my friend the other day. Where have the strikers gone? Why is the world not creating strikers anymore? Like, because this group we're seeing now were kids 6 years ago, right? Yeah. So why have we stopped making strikers? Like, where has that gone? Because if you had to name the 10 best strikers in world football right now, I bet we'd get to 5 and start struggling. Or actually,
but
let's take Mbappe and Vinicius out of that, and Salah, who are not real front men. You've got Haaland's number 1. Haaland, I would say Haaland and Kane are number 1, really, because if Kane actually doesn't get the plaudits of Haaland sometimes, but his goal scoring is just as good.
Ridiculous, yeah.
So you got them 2. Then you go this Gyökeres in Sporting Lisbon, he's obviously got the stats, but can he do it in England?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Would Isak have been a top player in the 2000s Premier League era? I think he would have been a very good player, but I don't think he'd
But
been...
you're comparing different types of players, though. You know, like the strikers in the 2000s, they're very
They
different
played with
from
twos up
strikers
front
now.
as well.
Like Salah
Going
wasn't
into
good.
Our defender discussion, because I think it is a fair point, is that, you know, we're both going to say Van Dijk is number one, I think, Toe, but he hasn't had to play with the same strikers that